Alright everyone, if you hear strange noises coming from the side, the snow is falling off the roof right now because it's above freezing and raining actually at the moment. It's an extremely messy day, so don't mind the slight distracting noises over there. No, it's not an army of bats trying to get in to return me to the grave. We gotta talk about Jeb Bush. Because, you know, it's funny to talk about Jeb Bush. He's a funny dude. Unlike George W. Now, as an aside, just really quickly here, I think that George W. started acting dumb because he saw that Jeb was dumb and therefore acted that way. And he could get away with stuff that George W. couldn't because he was seen as smart and sort of an executive backstabber. He was seen as the cold, hard corporate boardroom type, actually, earlier on. He decided to adapt the hayseed, you know, mentally disabled shtick that Jeb does. And he does so well because he's actually mentally disabled. So it's like he's like, please clap, and you know, saying weird shit about turtles, and then his hoodie video there. Now it's just like the most crazy shit ever. But anyway, Jeb decided he was going to weigh in on the Syria situation because, you know, he's so relevant in modern politics, being a Bush and all, and a former governor, and that's basically the accolades he's got. He's rich and he's a Bush, therefore qualified in the minds of, you know, some people who have difficulties themselves, perhaps even greater than Jeb's are. He decides to weigh in and says, well, Trump is bad for Israel. I hope that we reverse course on the Syria withdrawal. So basically, I think he's nostalgic. He's nostalgic for the time in which his brother took us to war in multiple countries and got applauded for it. Now that war is less applause-worthy, now that people see through the blood for oil sort of shtick from before and realize that it was basically a power grab, a money grab, it's endless war, it's cost-inefficient jingoism. Now that people realize that, they're less receptive to the idea of constantly bombing other countries. Like, you know, we're about to scale down in Yemen, withdrawing support for the Saudi fight there. We're withdrawing from Syria. There's scuttlebutt that we might withdraw from Afghanistan. I think this is wonderful. I think it's a wonderful idea. I think that we should be focused on things here because if our homeland is strong, then if we need to intervene, we can do so with greater latitude. But if we're constantly deployed in a dozen different fucking theaters of combat, where our troops constantly, they get, you know, constantly harassed by everything from having rocks thrown at them to IEDs, now it could be a little bit more difficult. We got a really good military in terms of their training because we keep rotating the troops into these zones. They definitely have combat readiness. The problem is, how much does it cost to do that? Oh yeah, lots and lots of money, many tens of billions a year just on the surface, and you don't even want to know about all the dark money that goes into it. Now they're talking about mercenaries, you know, Blackwater getting involved. Or didn't they change their name, or is it still, or didn't they change it back or something? I don't even know anymore. They do that for PR reasons mainly. I remember when those 3 Blackwater mercenaries got like dragged behind a truck and burned on a bridge in Iraq because of some war crime that had happened. It's like the Iraqi civilians rose up and got tired of them, and then they sort of withdrew from some of these areas of combat. Now, I think that Jeb's nostalgic. I find it funny that he invokes Israel. I haven't heard Netanyahu really give a shit. I hear the neocons here giving a shit, though. And by the way, if Netanyahu did give a shit, who fucking cares? Netanyahu, hasn't an election been called, a snap election there, because Netanyahu has lost the will to govern? So yeah, I care about what the Israeli government wants us to do in Syria. No, I don't. I don't give a fuck what some foreign state wants us to do. Our own goals should be, literally, America first. Not for ethno-nationalistic reasons, which constantly get invoked, but just, when did it become acceptable to perpetually occupy another country? When did that become acceptable? When did it become acceptable in the minds of Americans to put another nation's foreign policy before ours? If Israel wants to do something about Syria, they have the military capability to do so. The equipment is more modern, they've got more of it, they're a nuclear state, they've got plenty of fully fresh manpower as opposed to Assad, who doesn't even have control of all of his own country. What the fuck is Assad going to do? Get the Iranians involved? They don't want a head-to-head confrontation. The idea of a head-to-head confrontation between Israel and Iran is drummed up by politicians on both sides to scare their population into continuing to vote for stupidity. That's ultimately what it's about. I don't think that there's any serious individual, other than Avigdor, who of course resigned for that reason, in Israel or in Iran that really honestly wants to have that combat. Because Israel wins, you know, by default by nuking Tehran. The problem is then it gets universally condemned, shuttered out of the world economy, and implodes. Yeah, in other words, there are no winners, even in a limited nuclear conflict. And that's assuming Russia doesn't get involved. Or some of the other regional powers. You think, yeah, Egypt's like, oh yeah, you can deploy nuclear weapons fairly close to us. We don't really care. The Saudis, they don't care. Turkey doesn't care. Nobody gives a fuck, apparently. Now, I don't know that they know anything about world diplomacy, and Jeb certainly doesn't. Was he ever in national politics, or was his only position governor? I think he only worked at the state level as an executive. What the fuck do you care about the issue, Jeb? Nobody takes you seriously anyway. If you want to prop up the fact that we should have troops in Syria and do the bidding of other states, or whatever, you should have put out the opposite of this tweet. Because then it would make it look like dumb people wanted to leave Syria and all of this stuff, and that smart people would oppose you. Because you're not a smart person. The Bushes aren't. Well, some of the Bushes are smart. The Bushes are two things: evil and smart, and the only exception are the Bush women who married into the family. All the Bush dudes are totally fucking chaotic evil. George W., yeah, there's some foreign policy chops for you. It's funny when people try to criticize Trump. Oh yeah, George W. did a good job in Korea. He did a good job in attempting to contain, the terrorists that were active at the time. No, he didn't. He completely failed. Or they invoke Obama. Oh, Obama was so much more smart. No, he wasn't, other than on Cuba, maybe. And even that had its drawbacks, as we see with our embassy there that's been shuttered because of being attacked by sonic weapons. Now, I find it funny that Jeb, of all people, would decide to weigh in on the argument. And there are people who take it seriously. Oh, I long for the era in which the Bushes were in control, said no sane person ever. I see people, they're liberals. They get years and years of nonstop tweets or whatever showing that they are. They're not just pretending. They're an actual liberal, die hard, day in, day out, saying the same liberal things, and yet they're praising the Bush family. You must be a young liberal then. You must not remember the 2000s much. You must not remember shock and awe or the invasion of Afghanistan or anything about 9/11. No, there were people involved that had their heads screwed on right. Bush was not one of them. None of the Bushes were. Herbert Walker Ways, one of the first things that George W. did was talk to his daddy when that happened, because his daddy was the former head of the CIA or something. Yeah, he knew what to do. Oh, use it as a justification to invade these problematic nations. Afghanistan first, maybe we even get Osama. Try not to get him in Tora Bora, though, because you need him to be an excuse for you to invade other countries, too. That's what it boiled down to. Now, no, Jeb, I don't want to hear you weigh in on foreign politics. The fucking local night janitor knows more about diplomacy than you do. That's about all. Peace out.